Hello my friends, welcome back to another week of painting. I hope you're all keeping very well out there. I am suffering from a little bit of a viral infection at the moment. I have a bit of a flu, cough, a cold, runny nose, all that kind of thing. So I hope the video goes okay. Very under the weather. The winter is kind of setting in here in Ireland, so the cold mornings, cold nights, very short days, so all these things are going to start coming out now. People are getting coughs and colds and flus and all that kind of thing. So I'll persevere. I've been looking forward to getting this done for the past couple of days, so I really want to do it. I'm going to show you what I'm painting. It's a beautiful Irish landscape. Just, you know, I suppose you could say getting back to basics. If you're struggling with basic landscapes, with hills and stuff like that, this will be a nice tutorial for you. I am going to take my time with this one. I'm not going to rush through it. There it is. Lots of depth in those mountains. Now, that's slightly brighter in reality because of the camera recording and all that kind of stuff. Lots of lovely depth in those distant hills. I think we can have a bit of fun with this, and I think we will learn a little bit as well. So that's what I'm going to do for you today. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you learn a little bit. I'm very busy painting lots and lots of little paintings for an up-and-coming craft fair for Christmas. I have a big stack of paintings behind the camera just over here to the right. Lots of small paintings ready to go, and I'm still painting more. I would probably guess I want at least 30 nice paintings for a display, a proper good display. So I'm busy cracking on with that. You know, it's nice to have a kind of a bit of a goal, isn't it? Something to keep your mind going. That's what I'm doing in the background, painting away constantly. So look, without further ado, let's have a bit of fun with this and see what we can create. A nice little landscape. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. I'll be right back. Alright everyone, here we go. There's the reference photograph up there. This is my canvas. I'm using 20 by 8 canvas, alright. I hope you can see everything all right here now. Let me just fix the exposure and the background on this. Okay, 20 by 8 canvas. This is my palette. Nice small palette. Handful of colours. I'll tell you what I have. Titanium white, Naples yellow, burnt umber, burnt sienna, cadmium yellow, phthalo blue, magenta violet. That's a new colour actually. The magenta violet now, that is from Old Holland. A very good friend of mine sent them on to me as a gift. This one is violet magenta, slightly cooler than regular magenta. So I think we have a nice palette here. So let's crack on. Lamp black, cadmium red. This is my blank canvas. I didn't prime it, or did I? I think I primed this once with one quick coat of water-based undercoat. I'm going to just start with a quick sketch just to get along with this. Come down just below halfway there, thereabouts roughly. Let's just put a quick line across. I'm going to go pretty much maybe just to one side with the centre line, and first mountain here, I'm just going to do a very loose representation of that hill. And then we have another one here. It kind of comes down and it goes up and off. And we have another kind of a one very far off in the distance. All these mountains are very distant, aren't they? Then we have what looks like a kind of a tree line off there. And then we come up like that and over. And then we have the front bank, which cuts in front of that. And it goes off like that, doesn't it? I'm not worried about these little bits here. We have a little bit of a kind of a bank in the river here, some trees and stuff like that. But that's the basic sketching done. I just want to keep it kind of simple. I don't want to go into too much detail with this. I'm going to start with a very bright colour for the sky. And I want this kind of, I want to try and get the luminous effect of the sky. And what I mean by that is a very bright sunlit kind of a bluey sky. I'm going to take a little phthalo blue and lots of white, okay? I want to add a touch of a kind of a greeny shade into this. So I'm going to take some Naples yellow, tiny bit of Naples yellow with lots of white, okay? that will give us a very, very kind of a bright sunlit sort of a sky. So as if it's almost sort of dazzling to look at, it's kind of blinding to look at. You know, that kind of a light in the sky. So you see the way that little touch of Naples yellow, it just gives you that very kind of bright, almost turquoise looking sky. Now I need to lighten that really way down towards the bottom. It's almost just white, but the touch of yellow in there, it will kind of make a sort of a greeny hue, but a very bright greeny hue, if you know what I mean. Sometimes skies don't necessarily have to be a rich blue. There can be a hint of turquoise in the sky as well. And I don't know if I even need clouds in this. I suppose, look, we could probably pop one or two in, but there's so much going on in the painting that do we really need to have clouds? Maybe not. But look, they're there, so let's pop just one or two deep dark clouds in. Let's get some phthalo blue. I'm going to try this new violet magenta, see how that goes. And I might take a hint of Naples. I might take a touch of black. Now, I'm just kind of alternating between the colours. I want to get this kind of a deep bluey, shadowy sort of, that kind of a shade, you know what I mean? Now, I'm just going to clean my brush very quickly and add another touch of blue into that. Another touch of violet, maybe. And look, let's just go up like that. I'm just sort of darting these clouds around now. Just being very, very kind of light-handed with the brush, you see what I mean? Very, very light-handed. It's just a suggestion, that's all, isn't it? Very, very light suggestion. With that done, let's take my soft blender brush, just very gently, soften some of those back into the painting slightly, create a nice fuzzy effect. Okay, how's that? Does that look like a nice fuzzy effect? I think it does. We can add a hint of light to these if you want. Look, this is completely up to yourself. You don't have to. I might try. Let's get some Naples yellow and a little bit of white. Let's just get a very, very bright, rich colour. Very whitey colour. And let's just dab a couple of lights here and there. It's only just to give a bit of light in the clouds, that's all. You know, it doesn't have to have any particular direction or anything like that. It's just purely to add some colour to the clouds, a little bit of light direction, that's all. And just dab them with the soft brush, kind of just merge them in slightly into the clouds. I think that's fine. We don't have to worry anymore about the sky. It's a simple sky. I'm going to move on to a slightly smaller brush, and I'm going to put in those distant hills off there. So I've got myself a nice small flat brush. Let me just make sure it's nice and clean. Just make sure your brushes are nice and clean, because you put a dirty brush on the canvas, it spoils everything, doesn't it? Some phthalo blue, a little bit of that violet magenta. Now, if you have crimson only, you can use crimson as well, perfectly well. Honestly, if all you have is crimson in your palette, just use crimson with blue, whichever blue you have. You're basically just aiming for a very soft, distant blue. Let me think now, let me see. A little bit of white. You could even try this. Now that's a little bit too blue for my liking. So I'm going to take into that a little bit of white and maybe a touch of Naples yellow. That Naples yellow will just tone the colour down ever so slightly. So that's the distant one way over there. Take another hint of white into that. Look, just scrape a little bit of white through it. And you can even soften it with your finger very gently, look. Very gently. Clean your finger afterwards. Then we go for the darker shade in the middle kind of mountain here. Let's get that done. Little bit of phthalo blue again, bit of violet, touch of burnt umber. I'm thinking just a touch of burnt umber will be the colour that we want. And I'm going to just go up here and sort of scrape that colour in. It's that nice deep bluey shade. And I'm just going to kind of go up like that. And bring that colour down. You notice how I'm kind of scraping this on a very dryish sort of a canvas. My canvas is kind of dry-ish. Now I'm taking a little bit of white and a touch of maybe cadmium red. I'm just going to pop a little bit of that in here, just to push it away slightly, perhaps, as it comes down. I'm going to change brushes because this brush is quite kind of tough and hard at the moment. It's not a soft brush. You need a soft brush for this. There we go. This is a new brush. Nice new soft brush. Let's try again. And let's go for this one here. I start with a sort of a base colour, which would be a kind of a purpley colour, okay? A purpley blue, which is on the photograph. So I tend to start with that kind of a colour. So let's just mix up a nice warm kind of a bluey mauvey, purpley kind of a shade. And then when I have that shade, I kind of mix in other shades into it. So we could take a touch of burnt umber perhaps. And maybe let's try a touch of cadmium red. Just kind of mess around with different shades. Do you see what I mean? I think maybe a touch more cadmium red in this one. And we'll go with that and then we can add to it, okay? We can add different shades to it. So let's come down and it kind of softens in, but you can still see the difference in the line between the two hills. It almost merges in. You can see how dry my canvas is now. It's very, very dry. Let's bring some more of that down. Just like that. These nice rich blues will create a lot of wonderful distance in the mountains. You know, that's what we want. And I might just add a touch of light. I'm going to take cadmium red with a little bit of white. And I'm just going to create a slight kind of a misty effect just towards the bottom of that hill there. I think it might be nice. It's just something I want to try. You know, you don't have to kind of copy exactly what you're painting. You can add these little touches to it if you like. I'm just going to kind of swirl that around now very gently. And then take my soft brush and just very gently dab that, soften it together. And it, you know, it creates that little touch of mist off in the distance. I think that's quite nice, don't you? Now what I'm going to do for the next big chunk of my hill on this side, I'm going to just dampen that area with a tiny little bit of linseed oil, only because it's quite dry, the canvas, and you know, it's just making a lot of work when you have to scrape your paint into the canvas to get it to move around. So why not just pop a little bit of linseed oil or a little bit of thinners even that you have, just rub your canvas quickly with it. I think it just helps. It just helps you be more productive, doesn't it? Now with this other side, I'm going to start with a warm shade. You see that lovely warm, kind of pinkish brown that we have? I'm going to start with this violet magenta type colour. I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber in there. Touch of cadmium red. I'm going to mix up plenty of this now. Tiny touch of blue. And let's just have a look at what we have. It's not bad. I think it needs to be a little bit thicker, the paint, because it's quite thin. Bit of Naples yellow. I'm just going to cover this with a thin coat of this paint first, right? Just to get the canvas covered, to get the white out of the canvas. That's basically what I want to kind of do. Just get the canvas covered. So we have a base colour at least. We have something to work on. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I like to start with. Something to work on, and we can move from there. Let's start adding some nice shading into this. Let's get some violet, magenta, a little bit of blue. We can start putting some nice kind of purpley hues into the hill. There's probably a bit of a warmer shade in these purples, so a bit of cadmium red. And I'm just going to go with that shade up here for now. Because you can see we have sort of a dark outline, don't we? There's quite a dark outline on this. Maybe take a bit more cadmium red into the mix. Maybe a touch of burnt sienna. And we have this very rich warm shade coming in over here. You see where the light is catching the hills up there. It's catching the hills. There's kind of these warm shades sort of popping in and out. Clean the brush just quickly. We have a lovely dark over here. I want to make that nice and dark, and I'll show you why in just a moment. We've this dark purple, deep kind of a purple. Now plenty of cadmium red in this, but it's a kind of a deep purple over here, which we have light rocks then on top. So I'm just going to go nice and dark first with this area coming down here, and I'm going to go nice and dark here as well, just to have that darkness in. I'm going to take some cadmium red, because I think there needs to be a lot of red in this, a lot of warm colour, a little bit there. And then, for this light colour, you see the beautiful light shade coming down, don't we? I'm going to clean my brush, just very quickly. Take most of that blue. I don't want any blue in this now, when I'm doing this mixing. So make sure I have all that blue, most of it, out of my brush. I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to take some Naples yellow. I'll take some burnt sienna, and a touch of this magenta colour. Gives us this soft shade to begin with. So we go with this nice soft shade, soften that down. I'm just kind of dabbing it as it goes up here, just to create little ridges and stuff like that. So I'm basically just kind of merging all this together now. A little bit more Naples yellow. Come over here. We have that nice light shade. Naples yellow, touch of burnt sienna. You see, just kind of softening it up here and there. This is the sort of base layer for the mountains, all right? I'll be going over this with a palette knife and stuff like that. So this is just really getting the base colours in and sort of merged together ever so slightly before we kind of go on them with a palette knife and add a little bit of texture with the palette knife, yes? Let's take a little bit of burnt umber and burnt sienna. I'm going to pop a little bit of that in towards the bottom here and just feather it up. Again, this is just all impressionistic, okay? Just remember that I'm just doing an impression. You know, I don't want to make an exact copy of all of this. This is just an impression I'm doing, just for you, just to show you how you can kind of simplify something as well. You don't have to make something very, very difficult. You can simplify things. Let's go with our palette knife and a nice light grey. Let's take a bit of white, tiny touch of, let's say a tiny touch of blue, little touch of cadmium red, and that's too pink. Let's go back and take a bit more white, maybe a touch of Naples yellow. I'm just making a sort of lighty, how would you call it, kind of a light pinkyish sort of a shade, very, very light. And with that on the corner of our palette knives, let's just start dabbing gently and just start kind of scraping it downwards, look. to create the impression that there's all this kind of rocky colour going on up there. Just kind of scrape it down, following the shape of the mountain coming down. A little bit over here. Just dab and kind of scrape, okay? You see, I'm just going for a very loose impression that there's this little bit of rock going on up there. Tiny, tiny few bits over here. I'm literally holding this now between my two fingers as if like I'm holding a feather, and I'm just allowing the palette knife to push the paint across the canvas, just tiny bits at a time. There's one or two up here as well. But look, we don't have to go absolutely mad with all of this. Just a little touch of it here and there is all we need. Scrape it around here and there, you see, just to make a little suggestion of, you see, just little bits of this and bits of that. Then you can take your soft brush if you want and just sort of dab here and there, just very loosely, soften it back in. And I think that's fine. I don't think I need to do any more than that. We have this light colour. I'm going to do the very same with that light colour, okay? Little bit of Naples yellow, maybe a touch of cadmium red. And I think over here, I'll probably just add a touch of it in over here. Look, there's little bits of that light shade popping in. It's kind of dancing in and out, isn't it? Here and there, just here and there now. Don't go absolutely crazy with this. Okay, a little bit up there. Maybe a touch more cadmium red. Touch of burnt sienna, perhaps. You can scrape some of that down in here. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of putting in basic sort of shades with my brush, and then those basic shades will show through your palette knife afterwards, you see. Take a bit more Naples yellow. I think it just needs a little bit of light down here, yes? You see that? Just a touch of light. Now I think I will leave it at that, because the more you go at something like this, the more difficult it is to fix if you make a mistake, you see. So I think I will leave this as it is for now. I'm going to move on to this side over here. This again, it's just a simple dark kind of a shade. There's a bit of dark green going on over there as well. So let's take some black, a little bit of burnt umber, a little touch of cadmium yellow perhaps, and a touch of blue. Let's start with this kind of deep greeny shade. It just curves down like this, doesn't it? And then it goes into a nice rich dark, rich blacky kind of a green, doesn't it? Let's just, with this brush, let's just start dabbing and suggesting. Bits of trees. Again, just impressions, that's all I want. Nice dark colours, bit of black. Okay, so we carry that across. Let's go with nice rich dark bluey greens over here. Bit of phthalo blue on the brush. And this is a very sort of tree covered hill, isn't it? So I think for this one, I'm simply going to just lighten that colour. Bit of yellow, bit of blue, bit of white. And I might just go in here and add a bit of light. Let's try a bit of Naples yellow as well. Let's just go in and dab the brush around, add a little bit of light to the hill. Creating just a suggestion that is covered with trees. See, just along the edge. You could dab along the edge to suggest there's all these trees up there. Take a bit of blue perhaps. Go up there with a bit of blue on the brush, dark blue. Just to give it a bit of depth again, just to sort of push it back slightly. And we could take a bit of black. I'm just kind of picking up a bit of everything now at this stage, just to create a very rough texture over here. That's all it is. Then I'll take some Naples yellow with burnt sienna, or sorry, cadmium yellow with burnt sienna, and I'm going to add a little bit of light into it as well, here and there. You know, just to sort of catch the eye, so to speak. Go with some cadmium yellow, rich cadmium yellow here. We have a nice little impression of a hill over there covered with trees, don't we? Now, at this stage, I am going to put in the water far off in the distance, okay? At this stage. It's a good time, I think, to do that. Let me just top up my thinners. I need to top that up with some turpentine and a little linseed oil mixed in there. And give this brush, make sure this brush is nice and clean now. I like this brush. And again, what I'm going to do is just rub some linseed oil over this area, okay? Now, I know a lot of you are probably not a big fan of linseed oil because of the smell and stuff. Excuse me. But to be honest, I actually don't mind the smell. I think it's not that strong for me. I'm fine with it, I'll be honest, you know. It's because I'm only opening the bottle for a couple of seconds and closing it again. So for me, it seems to be okay, okay? But if you're suffering, if you have chest problems and things like that, don't do it. Just get yourself a nice medium in your local art store. Just pop in and ask them for a medium, and I'm sure they will help you out, okay? White and a little bit of phthalo blue, touch of Naples yellow here, a nice whitey, luminous kind of a blue, all right? I'm going to go right across all this with that nice shade. As we go, we could take a touch more blue in there. And I know you're probably finding it difficult to even see that colour, but yes, it is there. A little bit more. I'm going to go a little bit stronger just here and there, using the kind of the broken up bristles on the brush just to kind of catch it here and there, okay? You see? Just adding little touches, and I'm going to soften that away with my fingertip. So you don't have to use a brush. You can use your fingertip as well. It's the same. You know, it's absolutely fine. Just give it a clean afterwards. And okay, so we have a lot of that done. And it's at this stage where I almost stop and I assess what I'm doing. And I think, okay, what will we do next? I'm just going to pop a little bit more of that. It is very whitey down here, isn't it? Which is strange to see on a painting, a very whitey kind of a blue. I will say it's very unusual to see this kind of a colour in a lake, a very whitey blue colour. But it's there, so we'll paint what's there. Pop plenty of white on your canvas, soften it through, and we can just create a bit of texture on this later. I think it may need it. Let's start putting in little things up here. For example, this little bit of a land just kind of pops out like that, goes out a little bit, and we've another little bit that comes out here. Maybe take a bit of green on that. Create just a suggestion. That is a little bank of trees or something like that. There's something going on there anyway. Something on that. Okay, we have that one. And they are quite dark, so let's get a bit of black and a bit of blue. Again, these are all just impressions, so we don't have to be perfect with any of these. For the one over on the right, I'm taking some burnt umber and burnt sienna, and I'm going to go with that one, that colour for here. I don't even know what you would call these. There's probably a name for these, I just don't know, I'll be honest. I just don't know what they're called. You probably know, and I'm sure you will tell me. They're small, little, tiny little islands out here in the lake. Pop a little, I'm just going along with different shades now, just, you know, giving it a little bit of texture, so to speak. Maybe a bit of green here and there. And a little bit of black and burnt umber just towards the base of these. That always helps to sit them down. A dark colour. You see what I mean? It really does. It does work. Now they don't seem to have any reflection either, which is kind of strange. You would assume that they would have some sort of reflection in the water, but they don't. Presumably because of the direction of the sunlight. But yeah, they don't have any reflection, which is quite strange. I would have thought a little reflection there might be nice. We still could add a little reflection if we want. It's up to us. You know, we don't have to follow what's on the painting. You know what? Should we? Would I ruin the painting now if I just did this? Would I spoil the painting? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just going to try it. A little bit down here. You can literally use the same colour that's there and just pull that colour down as well. What about that? You tell me if you think that's after spoiling this painting. Let's just pull them down, soften them away. It probably did, but we can go back over them later, not to worry. Anyhow, let's go over and do this. Lots of burnt sienna for this. Bit of burnt umber. And let's just go for it. Take a bit of black. Pop some black in down along there. And I'm probably going to use my palette knife, I think, for the next bit. I am going to actually just bring that down a bit here. And I can see we have a tiny bit of water just passing through the back of that as well, don't we? So I'm just going to pull a little bit of a very whitey blue again through here. Look, this is all kind of impressionistic, that's what I would say. A lot of this is just an impression. I'm just taking my fan brush, taking some burnt umber, and this is just a very rough kind of a landscape over here. Kind of rough and ready sort of a landscape. So just get your fan brush and just, look, pop some in, come on. Take some black, bit of this, bit of that. Then we can take a little bit of light. Now I know that colour doesn't sit right with the landscape, and that's where your composition comes into play. And that's what I mean when I say, like, the composition of the painting. This is the only section with that type of colour, that kind of dark reddy brown colour. These have a little bit as well, but it's very kind of one-sided, if that makes sense. So what I would do then is I would just adjust this to suit. Maybe take a bit of a yellowy shade or green or something and just lighten it here and there. Bit of cadmium red. Just lighten it here and there, just to help it fit in a bit more with the rest of the landscape. Do you understand what I mean by that? I need to get more Naples yellow on my palette. It's a kind of a tricky one to get right. I'm going to try some Naples yellow, because with the Naples yellow we have here, that might help kind of integrate this section of the painting into the rest of the painting a little bit better, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to take some Naples yellow with cadmium yellow and just add another little bit of light here and there in the distant trees, look. Again, just to lighten them slightly and add a bit more detail. Now I think that kind of sits better colour-wise. I think it sits a little bit better. I'll get some burnt sienna and maybe just add a hint of burnt sienna here and there. Then black down towards the base. So you can't really tell what this is. It's just a chunk of land, isn't it? Over in the distance. That's what it is. A simple chunk of land. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in under that with a nice bright whitey blue again. Now I did pick up a bit of colour, you see that little mistake I made? But it's fine, look, I think we got away with it. It's absolutely fine. Take a little bit of whitey blue and just cut that off there a little bit. You can put some of that white through the reflection as well. That will give you more of a watery type of feeling, that it is water. And we can go the same over here. Then we take a little bit of dark colour. Maybe just give this a nice dark finish towards the bottom. And just kind of soften it upwards. How about that? Now, even at that, it's not too bad, is it? I'll take a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to pop a little burnt sienna in there with my fan brush. And maybe a bit there, and a touch there. You know, just to move the colours across the canvas. We do have a lovely kind of a bush coming up at the front here. I was kind of worried initially about that spoiling the painting, but I don't know what you think. Should we pop a little bit of a bush in the foreground, just in this corner? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. It's very difficult to tell unless you do it, I find, with some paintings. I mean, that on its own even looks okay. But let's maybe just try a couple of little branches popping up here and there. Just lots of squiggly little branches, look. Let's just put one or two. Let's not go mad. It's just this kind of wiggly sort of effect, just lots of little branches and all that sort of stuff coming off. Maybe go up into our hill a little bit. Again, I don't want to ruin what I have. But I think it might be nice. And I'm going to do something then to really impact this corner. I'm going to do something that's going to really impact it. I'm going to take a small palette knife and I'm going to take a blast of cadmium red on my knife, okay? And I think what I should just do is go along and just put lots of these little red berries and stuff like that down in this corner. Now I think that will really make this corner pop, won't it? Just a splash of red, nothing else. Now you could maybe put a bit of green or something on there as well, but I think primarily a little splash of red down in that corner. Isn't that nice? I think it just adds a little something to the painting, because it maybe looks quite bleak. So this little splash of red might just pull the viewer in, pull the eye in slightly. I'm going to go with a little bit of yellow as well. And let's just pop a little yellow, maybe a bit of black, just to suggest some kind of foliage or leaves or something like that. Bit of blue, and a bit of yellow. Look, it's just really to fill the corner, that's all I'm trying to do. A bit of burnt sienna as well, just to cover this area down here, to make it look like it's nice and full and it's thick. That's all you're doing. You could even just, look, start scraping colours together, just to fill this all in down here. I'm now grabbing a bit of everything. I have a bit of violet, a bit of black, I have a bit of blue. Whatever you think, just to give this a nice dark shade down in here. And then go back into your cadmium red. And let's splash on lots of thick cadmium red into these. How about a little bit of Naples yellow as well? Add a little bit of light into it, just where it gets dark here. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this looks quite nice. I'm just going to get some cadmium red. I think this is probably a nice effect. It's up to you how far you would like to go with something like this. You can just leave it without all of this. But I think when you kind of get into it, it really does jump off the canvas, doesn't it? Now, I won't overdo it. I won't go too much. But I think I'm nearly there, my friends. I think that's probably enough. I'm going to stop at that. So, there we are, everyone. I think I have achieved what I wanted. Maybe a little, oh, that's too much. Maybe a touch of light on some of these trees over here. I think I've achieved what I set out to achieve with this painting, which was just a nice simple impression. A nice little simple impression of a nice Irish landscape. Lots of distance in the hills over in the far distance over there. Nice rich colours as well coming into it. It's, you know, I think it's just a nice, simple, subtle landscape. I really do. Dark there, a little bit of dark there. Dark down in these corners here. And there we are. I don't think we need to do any more than that. So what I'm going to do, my friends, is say thank you so much for watching as I just continue to doodle along here. I do hope you've enjoyed watching me, and I hope it has helped simplify your landscapes as well. I really do. So let me know what you think. And my friends, thank you so much for watching. Now I'm going to go in home and I'm going to get myself a nice hot lemon drink, and I'm going to settle down for the afternoon. I might do a bit of painting in the house, just with my little box easel, and do some small little paintings or something like that. Just doodle away, practice, you know, have a bit of fun with some paint. Maybe tidy up my studio a little bit for the afternoon. But otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for your support. And do subscribe if you haven't done so. And thank you if you have. Let me know what you think. It's just a simple kind of interpretation of a landscape and how to create maybe a little bit of distance in a landscape. Don't be shy with your blues. That's what I would say. You know, nice rich blues. you can always lighten them if they're too dark, okay? But give it a go. Nice rich deep blues for your distant mountains really make a nice difference to a painting, I think. Okay, go on, I'll let you go. I'll stop waffling on. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again next week, my friends. Take care and God bless. I'll see you later.